The bridge over Maple Creek. The town of Elmsworth was small, tucked between rolling hills and a silver creek that wound lazily through fields of maple trees. For the people who lived there, life moved slowly, marked by the change of seasons and the tolling of the church bell. Yet for Emma Carter, every day felt like a chapter waiting to be written. She was 24, a school teacher at the Little Brick Schoolhouse, known for her kind smile and the way she always carried a book in her hand. One crisp autumn morning, as the leaves painted the town in shades of amber and gold, Emma stood on the old wooden bridge over Maple Creek. The bridge had always been her quiet place, where she watched the water shimmer and allowed her thoughts to drift like fallen leaves. But that morning, she wasn't alone. Across the bridge stood Daniel Hayes, a young man who had recently returned to Elmsworth after years of serving in the Navy. His shoulders were broad, his hair dark, and his eyes carried the weight of stories he rarely told. Emma remembered him faintly from their childhood, but time and distance had turned him into a stranger, one who seemed both familiar and mysterious. "Morning," Daniel said, his voice calm yet tinged with shyness. "Good morning," Emma replied, clutching her book a little tighter. For a moment, silence stretched between them, filled only by the soft rush of the creek. Then Daniel smiled, just slightly, and pointed to her book. "What are you reading?" That small question sparked something neither of them expected. They began to meet often on the bridge, sometimes by chance, sometimes by intention. Emma would bring her favorite novels, and Daniel would listen, sometimes quietly, sometimes asking thoughtful questions. He rarely spoke about himself, but Emma noticed how his eyes softened when he listened, as if her words stitched light into the shadows he carried. Winter settled over Elmsworth, blanketing the town in white. On evenings when the snow fell thick, Daniel walked Emma home from the schoolhouse, his coat dusted with snowflakes. Slowly, carefully, their companionship deepened. Emma's laughter became his solace, and Daniel's steady presence became her comfort. One night, while crossing the bridge under the glow of lantern light, Emma stopped to admire the frozen creek below. "It's strange," she said softly, "how something can look so still, yet carry so much strength underneath." Daniel looked at her, his breath visible in the cold air. "Like people," he murmured. Emma turned toward him, her heart quickening. For the first time, she saw not just the quiet man who walked her home, but someone who longed to be understood. Spring eventually came, bringing blossoms along the creek. On a warm evening, Daniel finally told her the truth he had carried. The years at sea, the battles fought, the friends lost. He admitted how he returned home not because he had nowhere else to go, but because he wanted to find something worth staying for. Emma reached for his hand. "And have you found it?" she asked. Daniel's fingers tightened around hers, his gaze steady. "Yes, I found you." From that night on, the bridge was no longer just a quiet refuge. It became a place of beginnings. Seasons changed again and again, but Emma and Daniel remained, walking together across Maple Creek, building a love as steady as the current beneath them. Years later, when the townsfolk spoke of Emma and Daniel, they always mentioned the bridge, that old wooden span where two hearts, once adrift, had found their way home. Whispers of the river. The town of Elmsworth was small, with cobbled streets and lanterns that glowed like fireflies at night. At its heart flowed a gentle river, winding past stone bridges and willow trees. For years, Amelia often sat by that river, sketching in her worn notebook. It was her escape from the world, a quiet corner where her thoughts drifted like the ripples of the current. One summer evening, while the sky was painted in shades of amber and rose, a stranger paused near her bench. He carried an old camera slung over his shoulder, the kind that clicked loudly with each photo. His name was Daniel, a traveler passing through, capturing moments of forgotten towns and quiet lives. "Do you mind if I take a photo of the river?" he asked, his voice gentle yet uncertain. Amelia looked up from her sketches and smiled. The river doesn't belong to me, but you'll find it listens to those who pay attention. That simple exchange became the beginning of something neither of them expected. For days, Daniel returned to the riverbank, and Amelia was always there. He showed her the world through his lens, teaching her how light transformed ordinary things into beauty. She, in turn, showed him how to notice the smallest details, the way leaves curled at their edges, the way shadows stretched long in the late afternoon. They walked through Elmsworth together, wandering from the old library to the bakery that sold bread warm enough to steam in their hands. Conversations came easily. He spoke of distant cities, of trains that rattled through mountains, of sunsets over oceans. She told him of her dreams, illustrating stories that could carry people into other worlds, though she had never shown her drawings to anyone but him. One night, under the lanterns strung across the bridge, Daniel stopped walking. The river below shimmered with the reflection of stars. Amelia turned to find him looking at her as though she were a photograph he never wanted to fade. "Amelia," he said softly, "I thought I was only passing through, but I don't want to keep moving anymore, not if it means leaving this place, leaving you." Her heart raced, torn between joy and fear. "And if one day you have to go, then I'll return," he whispered. "As long as you're here, I'll always find my way back." They kissed beneath the willow branches, the world around them silent, but for the steady murmur of the river. Seasons turned. Autumn painted the town in gold, and winter laid frost across the windows. Daniel stayed, finding work as a photographer for the local paper, while Amelia slowly began sharing her art with the world. Their lives intertwined like vines climbing the same wall, sometimes messy, but always reaching upward together. Years later, on a spring morning when cherry blossoms floated like confetti through the streets, Daniel knelt by the same river where they had first met. He held out not a camera, but a small velvet box. "Marry me, Amelia," he said, voice trembling. "Let's keep writing this story, one season at a time." Tears filled her eyes as she nodded, unable to speak. The river carried their laughter downstream, whispering promises of love everlasting. And so, in that quiet town of Elmsworth, beside the river that had witnessed their first love, Amelia and Daniel built a life not of fleeting moments, but of countless days stitched together by love. The song Beneath the Stars. Alina had always loved the sound of the piano. Her grandmother's old instrument, tucked away in a dusty corner of their small countryside home, was the first thing she touched every morning and the last before she went to bed. She played not because she was taught, but because her heart demanded it. When she moved to the city to attend university, Alina thought she had left that world behind. The noise of traffic replaced the quiet rustling of leaves, and neon lights outshone the stars she used to admire every night. Still, whenever her fingers brushed the keys of the campus piano, she felt a small piece of home. It was there in the dimly lit music room that she first met Adrian. He was a literature student with a notebook always tucked under his arm, his hair a little messy, his eyes thoughtful. He had been passing by when he heard her playing. Instead of leaving, he sat quietly in the corner, listening as though each note belonged to him. "Sorry," Alina said when she noticed him. "I didn't realize anyone was here." "Don't apologize," Adrian replied with a smile. "It sounded like something I've been searching for." From that night onward, Adrian kept returning. He never asked her to play specific songs. He simply listened, sometimes scribbling lines of poetry in his notebook, sometimes just closing his eyes. Slowly, a rhythm of their own formed, music and words, silence and laughter. As weeks turned into months, their bond deepened. They would walk through the city at night, trading stories about childhood dreams. Alina confessed her longing for the stars, how she missed the endless night sky back home. Adrian promised that one day he would take her somewhere she could see them again. But life, as always, had other plans. Alina's father grew ill, and she had to return to her village. Adrian wanted to go with her, but she insisted he stay and finish his studies. "We'll write," she told him, "and when the time is right, we'll find each other beneath the stars." Letters came and went, sometimes filled with hope, sometimes with longing. Adrian's poems grew softer, warmer, always ending with a promise. "I'll meet you where the sky is endless." Years passed. Alina worked at a small school, teaching children to love music the way she did. Her father recovered slowly, and life became steady but quiet. Yet on certain nights, when the wind carried the scent of the forest and the piano echoed through her house, she thought of Adrian and the city lights he lived under. One summer evening, as she played by the open window, she heard footsteps on the gravel path outside. She turned, and there he was. Older, his hair shorter, but his eyes still holding the same fire. "I promised, did I?" Adrian said, holding up his notebook, worn and filled with years of words. "I came to meet you under your stars." Tears blurred Alina's vision, but she smiled. "And I kept playing, waiting for your voice to find me." That night, they sat side by side beneath the vast, glittering sky. She played softly on the piano, and he read her the lines he had written over the years, words born of longing, hope. The stars above seemed endless, just as he promised. And in their music and poetry, they found not just each other, but a love strong enough to bridge time, distance, and